gentlemen, welcome once again to the Gentleman's Brotherhood. I am your host, Juan Sepulveda, and today I am joined by two excellent gentlemen who I've been getting to know over the past few months, and these are the men behind HeRose Men Mastermind. We have Sammy Villanueva and Brandon Holder. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having us. This is exciting. We are all isolated and quarantined in our own homes, but the men are fighting to unify and to connect. And I'm just grateful that you're leading that charge. And we're really excited for today's show.
Thank you.
Juan, thank you for having us. It was exciting to, speak with you a week or so back and just get to know your insight and things. And I just see your mindset is very clear-headed, and I love the content that you share and the value that you produce for your community. And I'm sure your men appreciate it very much. So appreciate you having us.
Thank you. I'm excited to have the conversation today because we had a conversation last week, and it was a very good dialogue where we tackled a lot of the things that men are struggling with in society today. And that's what we're doing together. I really feel honored that we are taking this bull by the horns, and we understand that there are challenges out there, but that we have to face them head on. And we definitely want to hear your perspective on it. So for what I know and what I've interacted with your brand and with your group, you have a very peculiar approach to helping men in their journey. Normally, we see the finished product. We hear the stories about the men who've made it, the men who've reached the pinnacle of their career, men who have made ripples with the different things they've encountered, challenged, and conquered. And in your approach, I love that you're speaking to the regular man who has the ambition to reach the highest levels of his development, but you focus on the fact that we are all in that process, and how we tackle the challenges is how we shape the man we ultimately become. Mm-hmm. So that's the topic for this conversation today, is how that challenge actually forms the man. And I want to start by getting to know a little bit from each one of you. And in particular, I want to hear a challenge that you are going through today that has the potential of really paying dividends in the future and forming you as a man. So if we can, let's start with Sammy.
Yeah, that's a great question. And what more relevant crisis or challenge to speak on than what we're going through right now with the coronavirus? This is unprecedented, right? At least in our lifetime. This is a unique situation. Everyone is quarantined, and people are dying. The economy is being affected. People are being laid off. There's no jobs, right? And so this crisis really can create some clarity. I think if we have and lean into the opportunity that a crisis can present, a lot of good can come out of it. So what I'm the early struggles I had when we first came into this crisis was thinking that my regular routine or my regular schedule was going to be able to maintain throughout this crisis. And I immediately found out that that's not true, and that's not even possible, right? So, I have 3 young daughters. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old. I have a wife, and I'm working from home and doing client calls on the regular, and being in close quarters with them while they're trying to do school and learning and activities. We weren't able to operate as normal, and what we went through as a family was recognizing that was first a struggle, and first created some negative feelings of like, this is really impacting me. I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little disappointed in the way my day's turning out. It's not going the way I planned. But then recently, what my wife and I have done, and really through the I guess the connection and community of my other brothers in the HeRose groups, just sharing ideas and communicating and talking, is it's opened up ideas of resetting and changing up what the normal looked like or the routine looked like. And so what we did was we investigated and we tried different routines, and now we're coming into a newer season of a different type of routine to adapt in this crisis. And truthfully, I'm getting some blessings that I never would have imagined. You know, my wife and I are growing closer than ever. My daughters and I are just having so much fun with each other in the small cracks of time and just throughout the day that we're able to see each other. And truthfully, I'm able to connect with some amazing people that I would have never been able to do if it wasn't for this, or if it wasn't for me leaning into the opportunity that a crisis presents. So that's that from my perspective. And then yeah, I'll pass it back over to you, brother.
I really appreciate that clarification when you say that it is not because this is happening to you or that you're in the middle of it. It's because you leaned in to the opportunity that was within it. So I see that change of mindset, that change of point of view, has an impact. So for someone who may be going through the same, where they find this new normal challenging, changing the perspective, changing the way they're looking at it, and really trying to harvest those hidden blessings, as you described it, it's a very important way to do it. Now, how about you, Brandon? Would you say that there's any particular challenge that you're going through right now, you have gone through recently, that you think is shaping out who you will be at the end of that challenge in particular?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, the whole thing's been a challenge. I think every human being on this planet right now could say this is a new challenge that we've been presented with, and how we've respond to it ultimately becomes, you know, where the progression it's going to take us towards, you know, where we can get our mindset and our thinking in. And for me, you know, that became where I worked in a place where I'm interacting with customers on a constant daily basis, face to face most of the time. And now I didn't have that interaction with team members and customers in that sense. And so bringing work home was a big shift for me, because I am not used to standing in front of a computer screen or in my cell phone, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day, sometimes doing work through that. And that started to create some little anxiety in myself. So that was a challenge. I was starting to feel like, okay, what do I need to do here? And I really, the main key focus that I began to think is, let's reset, Brandon. Let's just go back to some basics of things that you know to do to take care of yourself, to get your mind right, so you can start thinking very clearly and move you in the right direction and get that focus and you know, that mindset back towards the right direction. And through that, you know, through that struggle of adapting and changing through that, I was able to really get a clear mindset and begin to think more wisely and just plan more accordingly to where I want to go in my life and where we're headed. And, you know, it takes education, but you have to know what distractions are, because there's a lot of things we could be tuning into. And that was an issue for me, man. I'm on like this social media and this and that, and like hearing from this person, hearing from that person. And so pick your sources wisely. And, you know, and thankfully we have this community with the heroes that we lean upon, where it's a source and a resource for men to come and kind of get clarity and focus and direction. And that's what I love about, you know, having this heroes group. And that's been a big, crucial part in just staying connected and moving forward for me.
That's great. And you both have mentioned the community aspect, and definitely is something that is very valuable to us in the Gentleman's Brotherhood. And I see in your mastermind as well. As a matter of fact, not so many nights ago, you guys had a packed house in a video conferencing where you had interactions with men. Do you remember anything in particular that came out from that interaction that you would like to share with our listeners?
I can hit on one thing. You know, one thing that we do with our interactions is we like to break out and allow men to answer questions that we pose, and then also bring about discussion. And through those questions and discussion in smaller groups and within that same conference call, we're able to problem solve and just kind of sharpen each other's iron and gain ideas, insights, or just even encouragement and motivation, at the least, you know. And so that's something that I saw within that last meeting that we just did was powerful.
It,
Yeah, no, I would just add to that and just agree. You know, it's interesting you said that right now, Brandon. It comes to mind because I've been thinking about, what do we, how do we label this? What do we call it? Because there's so many places that are out there. I mean, Juan, we're in an information age there. There's so much information out there. There's so many things going on that, we don't necessarily want to just pour content or pour the right answers into the men. We want to allow discussion and connection. And as you were talking right now, Brandon, this came to mind. So we got to make sure this is documented, right? So it's like men manifest through mouthing, right? So like when we talk, men go through this process of like figuring out solutions, pulling on the hero that's inside of them, pulling on the gentleman that's inside of them. All of us have that better version of ourselves that we have inside. And when we talk, we allow that to like manifest, and it's a beautiful thing. And so we've noticed that maybe a few months ago in one of our meetings that we had a guest speaker do this for us, and it was totally revolutionary for us. And that's something that is a staple in our meetings now, is taking the content piece, but then really giving the majority of the meeting to the men to discuss and to manifest what's inside their minds and their hearts.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic, especially when you talk about the dynamics that come from leading a group. Is another thing that I have noticed. So I like that we have that in common, where I do have a point of view, and obviously considering that I've done some work with some great men to put together curriculums and some sort of outline to help men in their journey, I cannot allow that to be a restriction on the development of the men who are being part of the Gentlemen's Brotherhood. They have oftentimes the answers to the questions that they are asking, but it does require that manifestation of that externalization of the idea. And often you have this cacophony in your mind, all these ideas bouncing around, all these different preoccupations, and all it takes is for you to quiet all that down and then just project whatever it is that you mean. And it's almost like you're hearing someone else saying it. That light bulb goes on. So I'm glad that you're having that experience in your mastermind as well. Now, I did want to talk about connections. Clearly, one thing that's happening in our culture right now is that we are forced to maintain distance from one another in the effort to prevent the spread of this disease, and we are encouraged to self-isolate and have this distance that, although physical, could be emotional and psychological. Yet we found ways to put a stop to that. What would you say out there to someone who perhaps feels isolated mentally and emotionally at the same time that they're feeling the same in a physical way? What advice would you have for them to help them in that connection mending?
Yeah, that's I love that. And I've been thinking about that a lot, because what we talk about in the Heroes group is that men already before this crisis we were going through a crisis of isolation already, of aloneness already, of pulling in, to be alone. And yes, we may have been going through and working and maybe showing up to hang out with the buddies on the weekend to watch sports, but really the deeper connections were already in isolated realm. And so we really work hard in the Heroes community to encourage the man to explore in a safe place. And I think the point I want to make is I would venture into exploring where your safe places are. And I think a big reason that men don't go out and extend physically or emotionally or whatever mentally is because there's a little bit of insecurity. It's, I suffered from this early on. What if I don't measure up? What if I'm not the same? What if I'm looked at differently or looked down upon? And I think it's really important to find a safe place like the Gentlemen's Brotherhood, like the Heroes Mastermind, that umbrellas the entire community with unconditional love. Because with that soil, now you're able to explore without having to worry about, I tripped up, or, you're almost encouraged. Let's find the trip ups. Let's find the failures. Let's talk through the struggles. And I think the key piece is for any listeners and viewers is find that safe place, find the Gentlemen's Brotherhood, lean into that, work with a group like the Heroes Group, or find something that works for you, so that you can explore what that feeling is like, to have connectedness in relationships.
Nice.
I appreciate that invitation. Brandon, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, just to, add on what Sammy had already said so beautifully is, what the point he really made there is exploring it causes you to be intentional about that.
Mm.
You know, we have forced association through work, through business, through family. We can't get around those. Those are set there. Those are in place. You know, they might change here and there a little bit just as people come and go, but the intentionality of who we actually truly choose to and desire to be around is our choice. And that's the beautiful thing about love, and what Sammy commented on unconditional love is it's a choice.
Mm.
And that's why we bring men into this environment. And you know, that soil that Sammy's talking about is just, it's a beautiful thing for something to blossom and grow into. And that's, I mean, with what we do with the Underground Heroes podcast is exactly that. We're exploring and discovering the challenges and struggles of these men, and bringing them out of the soil. So they're, you know, they're starting to sprout up and be seen, and it's beautiful. So
I love that visual. And I want to, for those who perhaps are listening and haven't seen the name of the group, HeRose, you in your brand have written it as HeRose. So he rose. So the metaphor that you're using about a fertile ground upon which men of good manners, men of good quality, men of good intentions can come together to help each other grow. I think it's a beautiful metaphor, and I commend you guys for that. Now, I do have a question. You use the word love, and coincidentally, today I was thinking about that. I have men in my life that are not just my family; they're my friends, to whom I say, "I love you, brother." And love is not an easy word to use for many men, for a variety of reasons. Perhaps the way that they were brought up, the way that their friends look into it. But there is a love between men that is not a romantic love. Is a love of compassion, a love of friendship, a love of encouragement. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your relationship is with that word and how you use it ideally with the men of the Heroes group?
go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll start with Brandon and I. You know, we're the founders, and you know, every time we get off the call, I say, "Love you, brother," and you know, it's important because I'll just give you some context to the background of where I came from. I came from a background of not experiencing that from a male figure in my life, even with my brother. It's still to this day in my family, some of the males don't necessarily express that. And I remember one particular time when, you know, my parents had a really rough, you know, couple of nights, and it looked like it was, you know, the marriage was going to be splitting. And I reached out to my dad, and, you know, I told him, "I love you and I'm here for you." And, you know, we came back on a Sunday morning as a family. There was still wounds, and there was still hurting, and there was still this turmoil. And my father, for whatever reason, gave me the lead on, you know, where we ought to go as a family. And you know, what we ended up doing was, there were some things that we put into practice, and one of the things that we put into practice was hugging each other and saying, "I love you," every single time we interacted with each other or left. And what I told them was, it's going to be uncomfortable for a while, and that's only because you haven't done it yet, right? And so when you start doing it and actively practicing it, I think what it does is it allows the emotions that are truly there to rise to the surface, you know. And don't run away from it being uncomfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable a couple times at the beginning, but once you start opening that door and allowing the repetition to create some regularity, then the emotions of what you really feel can come out. And so Brandon and I do that, and we say it to the guys at the end of every single call, you know, that we love them and that we're here for them. So yeah, Brandon, you want to add to that, brother?
Yeah, there's another side to that. You know, that's a very soft skill side of love that we incorporate. You know, because we're emotional beings and we have those feelings and those sensitivities, and that's great. But there's another side to it that we talk about, that we speak the truth in love to each other as well, and that could come sometimes. You know, we understanding each other more, because as we connect and grow in our relationships together, we have that ability to understand how to speak to another man. And sometimes we have to tell them the truth, and truth sometimes hurts. And but because we laid that foundation of unconditional love, the truth is softened and we can come out of it. And so you can just see so much progress in men's lives when you're able to come to them and speak truth to them in their lives, that that's going to help them rise up and get out of those ruts. And and just there's a wise man out there who wrote a book, and it's called the Bible, and there's scriptures, and there's scriptures that say there's no greater love than to lay down your life for your friends. There's no greater love, and you ought to lay down your life for your brethren and for your community and for your fellow men in your groups and families and so forth and beyond that. But yeah, those are some pieces of love that we incorporate.
That's powerful. That was powerful. And I know there are a lot of people that are going to identify with the different points of views that you've expressed. And it's funny that you say that you close your interaction with your groups by saying that you love them. And the reason I was thinking about it was because a man that I listen to is a YouTuber that I admire tremendously. He always says that at the end of his program. Joe Scott is his name. He has Answers with Joe is his YouTube channel. If you're into science, into interesting topics, this is the man. Anyway, but listening to him, he says that I love you guys, and it struck me as interesting because I have my best friend, and I'll say I love you, brother, and I have a lot of men that are part of my fraternity that we've expressed that. And there's always someone who makes it weird, right? So, but it's like, okay, yeah,
You always have one of those.
yeah, don't say okay. You don't have to say it 3 times. Yeah, I know you love me enough. but in all seriousness, there are people that they go through their life without experiencing this. Period. I have a very close friend who recently mentioned that it was not a practice in his family because of the culture that he came from for his father to express love verbally, to say that I love you, or any expression related to it, or to give them a hug. It's different. So for some man, this is completely alien, even though it is such an integral component of human connection. A touch in the arm, like, hey buddy, I'm with you whenever you need some support, or a handshake, a hug, a kind word. Those are things that they're important to us, even if we don't know it. So I admire that you've incorporated this into your group.
With this whole coronavirus thing, things may be different with that touch part too, though. There might be some, it's the mind, it's going to shift a lot of people's mindsets towards that. I have friends who are like, I can't wait to hug people again. And then other people are like, I'm so glad because I've never liked it anyway.
That's true. That is so true.
It's going to be interesting though, because as a society and just, the world, humankind, there's going to be those reservations initially, I think, and to work through that, but it's you can always love people at arm's distance too, so it's all good.
It's so deeply ingrained in the culture though that I find it difficult to see a society that doesn't engage in it. Perhaps people will be more cautious, I would imagine, and hopefully we can help them in that process as we learn and as we witness how this is evolving. Perhaps give some pointers out as to how to approach it. And there are people that are very uncomfortable with human touch, and that is a reality.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's just going to give the rest of the world a feeling of what men feel like normally. When we hug and we connect, it's like, this is how I grew up. It's just like, hugging other guys and, loving and leaning into that. It's like, oh, okay. And, I think it's, I'm going to be one of the crazy ones that just goes out and hugs everyone because I like to disrupt, like in the workplace. It reminds me, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, guys, but the men and women, when they say like coworkers or colleagues, you like hug each other, but then like you see a man, you shake his hand. And so when I come into a situation like that, I do the opposite, right? So I hug the man and I shake the hands of the woman. Just to disrupt it a little bit.
Throw it for a spin.
That's kind of what I do too.
That's interesting. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about in the different conversations we have in our respective groups, you have different points of views because you have people that have different strengths and they have different backgrounds and they have all these different components that make them unique. What would you say is one way that we can leverage the strengths of the different men that are part of our group. How do we make this, to keep that allegory, how do we make our environments, our connecting groups, a fertile ground in which the strength of each other can come together and become basically part of one strength? How would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one first. The first thing that comes to mind is realizing that a community or a brotherhood or a mastermind is it's a two-way street, right? So it's you're a part of the group to add value, but you're also a recipient of getting value and getting things added to you. And if you only take one of those routes, then the circle is interrupted, the cycle is interrupted. And I think entering into the responsibility and the role of, yes, I'm going to add value, but I'm also going to be receiving. So one, I think being open-minded to everyone's perspective and learning from everyone, but then also being encouraged to share and to add value. One of the analogies that we like to use is, we tell the guys that our mastermind is like the gym. It's there, it can help you, but if you don't get up and come in and participate and engage in the activities that take place in the realm or in the facility, then nothing's going to happen. I can't magically smack you over this microphone or through this video to change your life. You got to engage in it, and you got to come and participate in it as well. And that beautiful participation allows for this compounding effect of learning and growth and just so many other things.
That's very good. And have you noticed anything when it comes to the strengths? Because I'm sure there's a delineation. There are some people who are very open to put their strengths out there and share what they know, and you have other people that perhaps may be more passive. How do you reconcile that? Is there anything you do in your group to try to encourage the more quiet ones to actually come to the forefront and open up?
Yeah, Brent, you want to speak to that, and then I'll add a piece.
Um, I, I think mostly what we do is allow that interaction and discussion in smaller groups within the bigger group. A lot of the guys I don't see, just many of the guys who, because we always say our group's for who it's for, and a lot of the men who are attracted to the group and end up staying and sticking, they really have their sights on big things. And so that interaction piece is huge, but one way we offset that is through just the small group discussions and brainstorming and masterminding in that way. That's been a big key thing. And then, we have men who outside have even stepped out, and these are the stories I love, and they've stepped out and they've reached out to another brother on the outside to help them with specific problems even. And that's where their gifts and talents get used to the maximum ability, is that one-on-one, but it was created through the group, but then cast out through, the connections and relationships that were formed. And that's a beautiful piece of it. So.
Yeah, and the other thing that came to mind was just the two things that we give opportunity for in different strengths, right? The two things that came to mind was we have something called the HeRose Wingman system, which is a partnership or an accountability system of two men in the group who check in on a weekly basis. And having an accountability partner allows for those two parties to be involved in each other's life and to speak wisdom and truth into each other's life. And the other aspect is the challenge. We have challenges, monthly challenges and quarterly challenges. And through this challenge, as we do this challenge as a group, what we all do in the community is we're very good at edifying and calling out people who are doing well in a particular area. I know one of the more quiet guys, he's like an IT guy. He was just killing it in one of our fitness challenges recently. He didn't post a lot and talk that much, but because of his success in the fitness category in that challenge, he was almost like the leading voice of the challenge in the fitness realm, and we just encourage that. And so really encouraging people's strengths when we're able to see them.
That's great. Now, with groups trying to keep in line with the topic of the challenge making the man, one of the challenges that I see people getting involved in is that the internet seems to be a a fertile ground for vitriol. You'll have people that will get offended by things. Get people that become aggressive in the way that they respond to things, especially respond to challenges. And in the Gentleman's Brotherhood, of course, we try to focus on how do you tackle courageously interactions and challenges from people without sacrificing courtesy. Is there anything in particular that you do whenever you have someone who gets a little hot under the collar and starts becoming a little bit of a nuisance? Do you have any method or any kind of skill set that you put to practice when things like that come to the surface?
Yeah. So the amazing thing, gratefully, we have really just created an environment and an ecosystem where, if I'm thinking about it instinctively, this unconditional love piece that we set down as the forefront allows for a lot of defenses to be lowered, and allows for a lot of transparency and vulnerability. And I think once that is received by the participants or by the people who come into the group, they start realizing that we're not against each other and we're for each other, and it lessens the chances. To tell you the truth, we really haven't had many incidences like that. I can think of one that's kind of similar. It was at a live event, and all we did was, I personally moved in to interact with him on a one-to-one basis, and just really did my best to show him, again, unconditional love, and invite him to participate in the activities that were taking place. But yeah, so I would say those would be my tips: is to lead with unconditional love, and then invite the person along for the journey. And when you do that, you seek to understand as opposed to being understood first. And it's really hard to be aggressive or angry or irate, where the ecosystem and the environment around you is totally opposite to that.
Yeah, that culture is definitely a huge piece that Sammy was hitting on there. And that's set up at the offset, and the bar is kept high, and it's there. It's not getting lowered for anything. And that's the key, really, that I think Sammy and I have focused on. And another thing is with men, we kind of, some things that we talk about and we teach is, essentially you're competing with yourself. You're competing with creating your habits and disciplines and setting your goals and moving forward in your life. And, you're coming to HeRose because you're going to get the encouragement and the support and the, information or whatever it might need be to excel you faster towards those dreams and goals and desires that you have. And so when men have that mindset in there, it doesn't leave very much room for, those quarrels or upset things to happen. And I'm sure they will, because, we're men and life is crazy. But it's definitely on an individual, incident by incident basis, I would suppose.
Brendan, you and Sammy have put together this company and the group and all of that. And I would imagine that you have some strengths and some weaknesses. I would like to hear, how is the dynamic between the two of you? What would you say, Brendan, is your strength when it comes to your participation and your contribution to HeRose Mastermind?
Definitely the relationship piece. I love diving in there and connecting with the men and just building those relationships and continuing going on that ongoing. Relationships are the glue that hold things together. And that's one of the more strengths that I do have. Weakness, definitely this technology piece. We're trying to, grow the community and just impact more men. And, that part I can't wrap my head around very well. And thankfully I have Sammy, who's just, maybe he feels that's a weakness for him, but he seems to have a better hold on it than I do. And, we'll eventually be looking to hire a social media manager.
Nice.
So we're looking for one, if anyone.
That's good. How about you, Sammy? How do you feel like? What would you say is your strength in this binary system?
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think the first thing I want to hit on, man, is just my brother's strengths. Brandon, he's always been a man that I looked up to. His heart is so large, and he truly leads with his heart in everything that he does. And every single time a new person meets him, or one of the members meets him or gets to know him, they fall in love with him and his just his spirit and his energy, his positiveness, and just is, like he said, he's a master with relationships and truly loving on the people. And also he's not telling you this, he's a master with the business end of things and where we're headed strategy wise and idea wise. And you know, when we get on a call with each other, we're like just chalking things up on the board and just throwing ideas together, and we mesh really well. So yeah, man, kudos to Brandon, and I just love being on this journey with him. As far as me for the strength, man, you know, I think I really receive and communicate the vision as best as I can. You know, I'm a big vision guy, and I've always been like that. And you know, I think a secondary or binary strength to that is I pull the trigger probably sooner than I should, or faster than I should. But
Nice.
what happens with that is I'm able to get data and traction and find out how to fix what was not maybe working, right? Where maybe some men think about it and ponder on it and think about it and ponder on it. I get this vision, I got this big idea, and I'm like, let's pull the trigger right now. Let's figure it out. Let's find out what happens. And, you know, Brandon and I are able to figure that out along the way together. So, yeah,
That's good.
that's what I would say.
It's definitely working, and I commend you for that. And you see, one thing that we can pull from your answer that I think many men out there could benefit from, if you think about right now, we are in a situation where we we have to adapt. Things are scary in the financial world. There are a lot of things that people are concerned about, and there's no lack of people reminding us and telling us what else is going wrong. So having that mentality of not shying away from a challenge and actually going for it. Let's get this done. I don't know how to do it. How do I learn how to do it? Who do I partner up with that has that skill set that can help me do it? Those are all ways that I see that in which a man who is going through a difficulty, who is going through a challenge, is forming himself to a better individual just by acting and getting things done. Now, there is a balance. Obviously, you could be rash and just go full throttle and say yes to everything and try everything,
Right.
or you could be very shy, very conservative, and you want to analyze everything. And neither of those two extremes I find to be ideal. There is a sway, or there's a gradient, and somewhere in between those two, I find men like you who are actually making decisions fast enough, so like they say, fail fast, right? Get all these no's out of the way so that we can get to a yes. Let's get all these obstacles out of the way so we can get to the finish line. And I think that's a good lesson to derive from this.
That kind of reminds me of this like kind of quote. I don't know this specific exact quote of it, but it's kind of in the way of successful people um, analyze enough information to make an educated decision, and a quick and educated decision. So they're able to make a quick decision, but then they rarely, if not ever, change that decision going forward. And whereas unsuccessful people will, you know, take a longer time to make the decision and then change that decision also more frequently. And it's just vice versa of it. And it's just, you know, success on the success path as men who are entrepreneurs, who are husbands, fathers, you know, you name it, all the roles that we play in, being able to gather the information and analyze it to make a quick decision and then sticking to it is the best route always for actionable, you know, progress towards clarity and purpose. So
Yeah, real quick, if I could just add to that, I it's always on my heart, and when I get the inkling to say it, I feel like I have to, because someone's listening that needs to hear it, right? And so this is important because I was told to me, you know, to anyone listening or watching, you're, especially as a man, just know that you're enough exactly the way that you are. Too many times we tie our value to the results that we get, and that can lead down a path of really destruction. If you know that you're enough exactly the way that you are right now, you're magnificent in the present body, in the present circumstances, exactly how you are, then think about how much fun you can have afterward in going after those results, right? If you remove the value from the results that you can get in the future, you can live in this paralysis of like, what if, right? But if you say and find through a true source, and right, Juan can help you, we can help you find that source of how you are truly made is magnificent. You're just enough the way that you are. Now let's go conquer the world, because it's just a matter of having fun. Our value's not tied to it. So yeah.
That goes perfectly in line with the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is the effort that we make to elevate men. There's over the past few years, you've had what seems to be a very popular way to belittle or to make being a man a fault, as something that we should be embarrassed of. We have differences in our life. If you were to compare a man biologically to a woman, there are differences in how we are made, in the things that we're interested in, the things that we excel in, and there's no problem with that. We of course try to make sure that despite those differences, despite that distinction that makes us unique, that we are honoring each other. It's that symbiotic relationship where I don't have the same skill sets that my wife does, and I don't have the same desires and goals. Well, maybe goals, yeah, we share goals in common, but maybe not the same desires when it comes to the biological point of view. But we work together, and that ebb and flow that we are together in makes us a greater unit than if we were just independently pursuing things. So I want to explore that a little bit more. In this environment where you have many people, not everyone, but there are many people who are advocating for this sense of shame for men and their toxic masculinity and their aggressive ways, how can we elevate men today to be proud of who they are, what they are, their role in society, and to help society as a whole move forward with that distinction?
Stop doing
Yeah.
stuff.
Stop doing what?
Stop doing stupid stuff.
That's right.
That's some real talk right there a little bit, right?
That's true.
I think a big part of it, there's a lot of back and forth with, what view on toxic masculinity you have. And, we talk about taking responsibility, full responsibility. Brandon and I have this belief, and we had a mentor in our life who said, take responsibility, full responsibility for a situation. And when you do that, you're able to change the situation. You're able to change it. Once you place blame on something else or point the finger, then now you totally lose the ability to change it. So whether you like the way that people are labeling toxic masculinity or not, if you as a man can take full responsibility, even if it's 99% untrue or not accurate in your life, but still taking responsibility for it, then I think it empowers us to change the situation. And really just to speak to that, because I do believe that there is a stigma out there that we have. And, Brandon and I were actually talking about this last night, where we like to call this toxic masculinity, or this version of men that's out there, the villain. And because we're the heroes, right? So it's down that path of sticking to that theme. But
Love it.
this villain that is imposed out there, that we got to be tough, that we can't cry, that we gotta man up, and we're the ones who wear the pants, and there's all these different things, right? There's that villain. And the interesting thing is that I think a lot of men are insecure about living up to that, because really it's not realistic, and it's not who we are. And so instead of stepping into changing that identity, what we do is we step back into, again, isolation, and we go down the easy path of just, I don't want to raise my voice, I don't want to say anything, I'm just going to not do anything, I'm going to fall down the easy path. And what happens is, when you start suppressing those feelings, suppressing your voice, and going down the easy path, life gets hard, and really problems arise. That's where violence comes from. That's where anger comes from. That's where broken families come from. And so what we say in the Heroes group is, you need a safe place. You need a place of unconditional love, so that you can at least explore what the hero's version of yourself is. What's the better version of yourself? And I think the society, toxic masculinity, it doesn't allow for exploration of who every individual man is. I hope that answers that question.
No, that's very good.
I mean, really, those are just like labels of mindsets and beliefs, right? And so in a sense, on men, as mankind, you know, we're given these limiting beliefs now. And so really kind of taking a stand and just and taking action, as we've talked about so many times on this, and just kind of undoing those limiting beliefs really is a powerful you know, way of getting out of those ruts per se. So
excellent. I do love the fact that I'm not alone in this battle. I'm proud that to have men like you walking with me to help other men out there. I think we're very fortunate that we get to look at the current situation, see how we can contribute the best in order to motivate men to really become that reach that level of excellence. We all have the capacity to do it, to really have an impact in our families, in our community, and even in society as a whole. So I'm grateful that you guys are taking this seriously, that you are actually putting the work to bring men together in community, in collaboration, to actually achieve that level of perfection that we seek.
yeah, we appreciate that one. We appreciate that very so much, because that's something that Sammy and I always talk about. We're in this for the long term. We're not going anywhere. You know, our journeys as men, it doesn't just stop on day one. We have a breakthrough. It doesn't stop there. There's going to be new challenges. There's always an ongoing need with the progression of our journeys and success paths. And it's just, we're not going anywhere, and we've rooted ourselves down. We're building that foundation deep into the ground, and we're building up from there.
Yeah, man, that's right on with that, brother. We're shoulder to shoulder virtually, and you know, because we're on the opposite ends of the United States. You know, I'm in California, we're in California and Florida, and but it's a beautiful thing of this connection that we've built through this medium of technology. And yeah, man, you're not in it alone, and you know, we're not in it alone. I'm grateful for you and getting to know you, and I'm really looking forward to see how HeRose and the Gentleman's Brotherhood could stand as a force for good for men out there as a larger whole. You know, we said this before we hit record. We wear different jerseys. You know, we wear the HeRose jersey, you wear the Gentleman's Brotherhood, but we're on the same team, and that's the team of the better man that's out there. And you know, one thing that I'll just say is, if you're going through life and there's nothing that is uncomfortable for you, if you're not feeling a challenge push up against you, that's the dangerous place to be. Because when it's calm and when the routine is smooth and when you're just complacently just floating through life, be cautious. And so what we want to make sure you do is you lean into these challenges so that you can be transformed when you come out of them.
I love it. The challenge forms the man. Perfect circle in our discussion. I really enjoyed the conversation we had last week. For those listening who haven't checked that out yet, we're going to add links in the podcast and in the video so that you can hear our conversation about how do we actually put into practice this effort to take a man and make him better. And we had very interesting discussions. So I'll link to their group. Their podcast is going to be on the. Let everybody know before we part, where is the best way for them to find the podcast?
Yeah, you can go to weareheroes.com, and we have a page that shows all of our podcasts, but we're on all the platforms, iTunes and Stitcher and all that. And it's Underground HeRose, HeRose spelled HeRose. And that's it. We're there. The podcast is tremendous. We've had such great feedback from it, and it's exciting to dive in to men's stories and see where they came from and where they're headed and everything in between. And it's very powerful in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a place where men can find extra inspiration. So, like I said, I'm going to add extra links so that they can go check out that interview. In particular, that discussion, I think, has a lot of material to help men in their pursuit of excellence. If you've liked our conversation today, make sure to share this love for another brother by sharing this conversation with another man. We're not alone, and there are men out there that perhaps haven't had a chance to encounter the HeRose group or the Gentleman's Brotherhood. I encourage you to actually go out there and share with the people you care for so that we can continue spreading this message of elevating men to a place of excellence. So thank you as always for listening to the Gentleman's Brotherhood. And until next time, I wish you courage, courtesy, and the perfection of excellence. Take good care.